Hello everyone, and welcome to the 5th year of our Clangen Dog Pack Challenge. Like I did with the Grand Teton Herd and Kelp Clan, I've linked a Google Doc down below with all the pack's information, characters, and story if you guys are interested. I'm still fleshing out things, so it's kind of a work in progress. But this year is pretty tragic and dramatic, so let's dive in the year that I've decided to call the Cougar's Reign of Terror. Once again, Dude put herself out on the line and has had her heart broken again. 2 more times she asked Comet to go out with her, and both times he rejected her. She's been pretty heartbroken over it, and when Comet decided to ask Dude out on a date, she declined. The poor thing is tired of being played with. She thinks she deserves much better treatment, and I completely agree. This year, Dude has gotten grand puppies, and is beyond relieved to have some distraction from her troubles. Unfortunately, she lost one of her own pups to the cougar this year, so having the young puppies running around has helped to keep her busy. Comet is incredibly stressed over the situation with the cougar. The cat is growing more and more bold with every dog it manages to take. Half the pack is crying out for them to find a new territory, while the other half is ready to hunt the cougar down and kill it themselves. Comet isn't sure what to do, and he can feel his age starting to wear on him. He's not sure if he can make the right choice for the pack, and is feeling the burden weigh him down. He's been relying a lot on Atlas for help, but his deputy is also getting up there in age. Comet isn't sure how much longer he'll be able to continue as leader, and he's not sure if Atlas is willing to step up in his place. Atlas is fully aware of Comet's troubles and can see the leader's shortcomings. Although Atlas is the dog that has suggested leaving to find a new territory, he can tell Comet isn't excited about that idea. Atlas's mate Nadia was the first dog to be taken by the cougar. Even though revenge would be an acceptable desire for him, all Atlas wants is to keep his pups safe. If they fight the big cat, there's no telling what could happen to any of them. He thinks the smart option is to leave and find a new home. Many dogs agree, and many others staunchly disagree. One dog that Atlas has come to count on, though, is River. This young pup has proven himself to be responsible and competent. He's still a young dog and has only just started learning how to fight and hunt properly, but Atlas can see promise in the wolfhound. Despite his age, Atlas is secretly wondering if River would make a good replacement deputy when it's time to retire. River is quite keen for the role of deputy or even leader, but he's also very aware of the fact that he's young and inexperienced. If the older dogs like Atlas and Comet are struggling, River knows he would be having a very difficult time in their positions. Either way, he looks up to Atlas, not literally of course. He sees the deputy as a sort of father figure and hopes that he can be just as smart and intuitive as Atlas is. These 2 old guys remind me of a pair of old men that just like going fishing together. Milo is an elder and is pretty old, and Amari's age is rising as well. Although Amari still has his silly attitude, he is slowing down and finding it harder to continue in the colder months. His joints have started aching, and he's pretty sure he may need to retire soon and become an elder with Milo. Milo does make it sound so nice, after all. The puppies and young dogs bring you fresh prey and make sure your pelt is free of ticks or burrs. Everyone respects you and looks up to you. The elders are a highly revered rank, and it's pretty nice to be appreciated for all you've done for the pack. Amari can't help but think that sounds pretty nice. He's been with the pack since the very beginning, and finally getting to rest sounds like a dream. It's getting even more feasible now that Jay has an apprentice under his wing. Jay has been slowly healing from the loss of Spot, but the loss of another of his siblings has really hurt him this time. He agrees with many of the dogs that the cougar should be stopped, but he's a smaller dog. Jay is certain that if he voted to hunt down the cougar, he'd be no help in the battle, and he would only be sending more of his friends to their deaths. He's pretty confused and uncertain about the future of the pack, but he knows one thing is for sure. His little protege will take good care of the pack with him. Oliver is one of Lucy's terrier pups, and he has grown into such a wonderful little dog. He is always trying to do the right thing and is very eager to help his pack mates. Jay could see the potential in the young pup from an early age, as Oliver bounced around the base camp, naming the flowers and grasses that grew on the grounds. All puppies are taught the basics of which plants they aren't allowed to eat around 3 months old, but Oliver seemed to have a fantastic memory for any plant he had learned. Jay was elated to have such a young and bright energy around the healer's den, and he's hoping that Oliver will bring some light to their duties. Now we have the first of a few new faces for the pack. This is Cello, a Newfoundland. Cello is a confident but genuine dog with a very gentle personality. He was once a service dog to a very old Spanish-speaking grandpa. The old man had knitted Cello his very own scarf and took very good care of the dog. In return, Cello took very good care of the old man. However, the man passed away, and after that, Cello didn't have anywhere to go. He was very hungry, alone in the house, and nobody came to help him. He was very sad to leave his human, but he knew he had to find a new home. While wandering near the forest, Cello found a large lake and was excited to try swimming. He hadn't been swimming since he was a pup after all, and he splashed right in. When he was done, he dragged himself out of the water to meet a male pit bull and a male Australian shepherd. They introduced themselves and offered Cello a place to live. A home full of dogs right next to this beautiful lake? How could he refuse? Cello has settled in perfectly into the pack. He helps keep the shorter-haired dogs warm in the winter and has been teaching the puppies how to swim. Mabel is absolutely obsessed with him. She thinks Cello is so kind and lovely. Her tail jitters out of control when she sees him, and she feels like a giddy, love-struck puppy. Love must be in the air this year because these two also have crushes on one another. Jenna was very interested in Mabel for a while. It was clear to Jenna that Mabel didn't share those feelings though, so instead of being disappointed, she just moved on. She and Mabel are still great friends though. Jenna's new choice is Zelda, the daring boxer. Jenna is quite adventurous herself and finds that many other dogs in the pack aren't willing to explore as far as she does. Zelda, however, is very brave and will go anywhere for the fun of it. These two are often seen sneaking off in the night to travel far beyond the reaches of the territory on a quest for adventure. They're lucky that they've never come across the cougar, but the two girls seem confident that they can handle themselves. I'm not sure that that's true, but hopefully their overestimations of themselves don't get them seriously injured. Either way, they're quite cute together, and Jenna seems to be really helping with Zelda's self-esteem issues. Jenna thinks the boxer is beautiful and scary, and she loves it. Zelda didn't know that you could be beautiful and scary at the same time, so she's really learning to accept herself the way she is. Rumble seems to be doing a bit better this year. He lost McChicken to the cougar last year and blamed himself for the accident, but he's come to realize it wasn't his fault. Many dogs have been lost to the cougar this year, and it's not because they weren't strong enough to fight. The cougar is very clever. Rumble is under the impression that the pack should stay and fight off the cougar. They had claimed this territory, and he's not ready to give up the beauty of the lake. He can see that there are many older dogs in the pack that would struggle if they needed to find a new home again. He's concerned for the well-being of the elders and the young pups. He's also concerned for his new friend Radar. Although he's not the most social or friendly dog, Radar is a good friend to keep around. Rumble worries for him though because Radar's right hind leg is quite weak from an old injury. It's been driving the mutt crazy. Radar insists that he's fine, and so he doesn't draw attention to himself. But he knows many eyes watch him as he limps to the healer's den for poppy seeds. He's not terribly old, but the injury seems to only bring more discomfort with age. Radar is not excited to see what new pain elderhood will bring for him. Luckily, he has a few more years to go. if his leg allows. This year, the most tragic yet ironic thing happened to Frost. He died of frostbite. I am so sad that he's gone because he was adorable. He and Ember had just become mates, and I thought they would live long, happy lives together. He was one of my favorites, and I was really looking forward to Ember and Frost puppies. Speaking of Ember, she understandably had a very tough year. At the very beginning of the year, her mate died of frostbite. She was devastated and couldn't eat for days. It was a tragic sight to see, and her brother Jay did everything to heal her emotional wounds. Then, as she started to feel a bit better, her friend Flint ate death berries. He's so childish and naive and didn't know what they were. Ember threw herself into caring for him. Aside from her family and Frost, Flint was her best friend and had been with her since the very beginning. She and the healers worked tirelessly to save him, and thankfully they did. Flint recovered, and Ember was beyond relieved. She wasn't sure if she could take the pain of losing another friend. Only a moon later, the pair of dogs actually became mates. The pack was pretty confused by this turn of events. They had always been friends, but it seemed so soon after Frost's passing. Dude tried telling Ember that if she needs comfort, that her family is still there and she doesn't have to be rushed into a relationship so soon. Ember insisted that this is what she wanted, but she seemed so confused. One evening, the cougar attacked and Ember lost one of her siblings. In the emotion of it all, she and Flint got into an argument and broke up in the middle of the camp. I don't think Flint did anything wrong. I just think they weren't meant to be mates, and especially not right now. Aurora had been out on a fairly large patrol. There was a pair of big guardians and another young dog. Aurora was also a very large and imposing dog herself. The patrol felt pretty secure in their numbers and size, and they set off to hunt. Nobody expected the cougar to be so bold, though. Aurora was the only survivor of the attack, and she raced home as quickly as her legs could carry her. When she relayed the news to the pack, there was an outroar from no other than Aurora's own mother. Chickpea howled above the leaders and the murmuring crowd. "How long are we going to allow this cat to terrorize our pack? It has killed many of us and nearly took my daughter. How are we supposed to stand by and watch? I say we hunt the beast down and finish this horror once and for all." Many dogs howled their approval, and many looked uncertainly to Comet, who looked just as unsure. Aurora disagrees wholeheartedly with her mother and thinks the pack should just move on. The cougar is just an animal like they are. It's just protecting its home and hunting for food the same way they hunt for deer or rabbits. Aurora can't agree with Chickpea on her thoughts of killing the cougar. Bliss is not doing good. Last year, Lucky was nearly caught by the cougar and broke his leg. This year, Ren nearly escaped the cougar's grasp, but he fractured his jaw. Her only healthy pup is Bat. Holly's breathing issues continued to worsen until she could hardly breathe at all. Bliss found her early in the leaf bare morning, dead. Bliss is absolutely devastated to lose one of her pups and see the rest of her litter be tossed around like chew toys for this giant cat. What's worse, Bliss's bravest and most devoted defender, Topaz, was also killed by the cougar. She was one of the dogs that had gone out with Aurora and had died trying to save her packmates. Bliss is terrified and isn't sure what to do. She has her 3 sons left, but it's just not safe here anymore for dogs like them. They're fast and great hunters, but they're easily breakable when a cougar is involved. Bliss can't stand to watch her family get picked off one by this creature. But she's not sure if leaving is the right choice either. On a little bit of a happier note, Bandit and Cricket found a litter of puppies in the far reaches of the territory near the abandoned town to the north. There was no scent of their mother, and they were very small, so the pair of mates knew they had to take them in. From left to right, we have an unruly little boy named Rascal, an unruly little girl named Penelope, and a charming little girl named Micah. They are quite mischievous and do get themselves into a fair bit of trouble with the older dogs. They're only about a month old right now, so they will grow into quite the troublemakers, I'm sure. On a side note, I drew them much bigger than they actually would be at only 1 month old. I wanted to see their patterns better on bigger puppies. The 3 are purebred Ibiza hounds. I think their mother was a pet from the abandoned city in the north. She must have given birth outside, but when she went to look for food, she never came back. Either she was killed or captured, but nobody knows. I suppose if the pack stumbles upon a lone female Ibiza hound who lost 3 puppies, they would probably come to realize that maybe she's the mother of these 3. But only time will tell. Cricket is not doing well. He had been doing a lot of soul searching this year and doing his best to be a better mate and friend. Despite being deaf, he has worked very hard on listening to others and respecting what they want. It was so easy for him to tune out what everyone else wanted and just focus on himself, because he didn't even have to listen to them. Now he makes great efforts to show that he cares for his loved ones. Bandit is quite pleased with the change in his mate and is happy to see the effort Cricket has been investing into their relationship. Cricket is really sad that he never got the chance to show his new improvements to Falcon, though. The 2 always fought, and they never had the opportunity to make up before Falcon was killed by the cougar. He had been out with Pepper and Wren when the cat attacked. Wren was the only survivor, but he was injured. Falcon's family was devastated to lose him, and Cricket is especially hurt over the fact that he never got the chance to apologize for treating Falcon so poorly. The only surviving member of the patrol that got Falcon killed is Wren. He's quite the quirky character, it must be said. The day of the attack, he saw Falcon and Pepper trying to sneak off alone. The insolence of these 2 to defy direct orders from the leaders. Ridiculous. They didn't have a guardian with them, and Wren refused to let the pair go out alone with no guardians. So he searched for one, but with no guardians available to tag along, he appointed himself their protector. He followed them silently, keeping an eye and ear out for any danger. He has very good eyesight after all. He watched carefully, but when Falcon and Pepper started getting a little awkwardly close, Wren turned away. So he started making his way home, but a sudden flash in the trees caught his eye. The cougar was upon them in a moment. Wren ran into the battle yapping, but he was batted away by the big cat. His jaw hurt so much, and when he got back to his paws, Falcon and Pepper were already gone. Wren ran for his life, having broken his jaw, but survived the cougar attack. Oleander is still a little bit of a shy guy, but he has found himself a new friend. After being bullied by Bat, Oleander has been very nervous to share his interests of stories and history. However, Smokey, the older Boston Terrier, isn't shy about telling his stories. Oleander has become enthralled by the things Smokey tells him. The smaller dog has seen a lot of stuff in his time, and Oleander can't get enough of the knowledge Smokey can share. Oleander finds the outsiders endlessly fascinating. Every new dog that joins the pack is subtly interrogated by him. He's incredibly curious about the outside world, and people, and where all the dogs come from. The young dog has even asked Jenna to show him the abandoned town with the train tracks, but she refuses. His father would be furious with her. Oleander is desperate for knowledge outside of the pack, because this is truly all he's ever known. So this is a fascinating group of Pip, Bat, and Pigeon. We have a little bit of a love triangle going on with these three guys. Pip started to develop a crush on Bat because he's quite playful and has an easygoing demeanor. She really likes his chipper attitude, and Bat kind of likes Pip back. Then Pigeon started to like Bat too. She thinks he's charming and a little silly, just like her. Now Bat is just a regular guy with two beautiful girls vying for his attention. He's smart and funny and curious, so he's got the personality. I would say I don't know what they see in him, but he's just a nice guy, so there's nothing really wrong with him. He's quite lucky actually to have the attention of these two beautiful dogs. Some of you may suggest a poly between the three of them, but I don't see that going over well with the girls. Pip is a bit of a loner and sometimes thinks that two is a crowd. And Pigeon, on the other hand, can get easily jealous and would find having to share her mate very problematic. I guess it's up to Bat to decide who he likes best then. Now, again, we have a rather odd trio. Aspen has been uninvolved this year for the most part. He tries his best to support his pack by hunting and helping his father as much as he can. Lucky's name continues to hold true because his broken leg from last year has healed perfectly. He's still pretty traumatized from his run-in with a cougar and is a bit anxious to try hunting again, so he tends to stay close to the biggest dogs of the pack, including a new dog who is definitely one of the biggest. But before we get to her, there's a little bit of lore to go through. So Aurora, Chickpea's daughter, went out on patrol with Topaz, Jack, one of Lucy's pups, and a dog we've never met named Hamburger. He was a very imposing mastiff who joined the pack one moon prior. Obviously that patrol didn't end well and Hamburger actually died. I didn't draw him this year because there were so many dogs to draw and he was only in the pack for one moon. But the moon after his death, a new dog joined the pack, a Saint Bernard named Quarter Pounder. Is this Hamburger reincarnated? Nobody knows, but I think that's a really funny coincidence. Also, it's hilarious that the random generator rolled her to be a giant Saint Bernard with her name Quarter Pounder. It's just perfect. So, on to QP, as she's known for short. She was a pet, but apparently they didn't expect her to get very big. The humans didn't really have the space for a dog that was so massive, and instead of doing the responsible thing, they just let her go. QP didn't mind though, because she's quite adventurous, and she's been very happy since joining the pack. These two girls have been the best of friends since they were both puppies. Fiona the terrier and Willow the massive wolfhound are an odd pair. Fiona is so much smaller than Willow, but the larger female is incredibly gentle. They wrestle and play, but Fiona is never injured. As pups, they were both quite soft-hearted girls. Fiona grew up into a faithful young dog who's very trusting of others. She wears cardinal feathers to match her mom's bright red bow. Willow actually grew into a confident young dog who has a way with words and is quite smart. I think she'd make a good leader or deputy. She actually came up with the idea that maybe each rank should have a leader so that Comet and Atlas could have a little less responsibility. This way they'd have sort of a council of leaders, a leader of the Guardians and a leader of the Hunters, etc. She hasn't shared this idea with anyone but Fiona though. It's a great idea though, I like it a lot. Now we have two more new faces. First we have Spark, the insecure Papillon. She's quite energetic and excitable. She loves to run and play and fight with the other dogs, but she takes a long time to warm up to others. Spark lived with humans that were not very respectful of her boundaries. She didn't want to be pet all the time or snuggled, but they never listened to her growls. The small dog didn't want to, but she was forced to bite a human when they kept pulling her hair. After that, the people tossed her outside and never let her back in the house. So she found a new home with the wild dogs. Spark fits in quite well. Our other new face is Piper, I named her Piper because I think greyhounds look like pipe cleaners, in the best way possible, of course. Now, Piper has quite the interesting story. She grew up in a family of racing greyhounds. She was raised from birth to be a champion, and she knew she had very high expectations of her. However, while training for her debut race, Piper pulled a muscle and was limping pretty heavily. Her mother, who was a highly anxious dog, was so worried that Piper would be put to sleep because she couldn't race anymore. She had seen it happen before. She told Piper to run away and never come back or she wouldn't be safe. So Piper did. The poor dogs didn't realize that Piper would heal from a pulled muscle, and she would have been just fine. But she ran, and she found a home with the pack. She loves hunting, and often has a hard time not chasing some of the smaller dogs. She just can't help it sometimes. Salt is not doing well. At the very beginning of the year, her adoptive father, Frost, died, and it was very heartbreaking for Salt and her sister. She seemed to be taking it especially hard because she hadn't been able to spend much time with Frost lately due to her legs crippling her. After his death, Pepper decided to join her sister as a den keeper instead of being a hunter. Although she loved hunting, she wanted to help her sister more than anything. But we all know what happened to Pepper. She had been going out with Falcon regularly, and the two really liked each other, but one unlucky day, the cougar was lying in wait for them. Salt is absolutely devastated and can't even bring herself to go to the healer's den for poppy seeds for her pain anymore. Jay and Amari are quite worried for her and think that she'll lose function in her legs altogether if she doesn't do at least a little bit of light exercise. They're desperately trying to get her to move around just a little bit, but the pain in her legs and in her mind is just too much right now. Lucy is now the sole den keeper responsible for keeping the entire camp in order and looking after the puppies. She's quite overwhelmed and really hopes that Salt can start feeling better soon so she can help again. Lucy is also quite upset over the loss of her son Jack. He was like her mini-me and had grown to be compassionate, just like his mother. She misses him every day and is worried for her other two pups in these dangerous times. She's also quite worried for a new friend she's made. The dog creature that had led her to the pack had been lurking on the outskirts of the territory. Lucy has met him several times, and he's worried about the cougar as well. They never used to hunt canines before the pack moved in, and he's worried he'll be next on the menu. He introduced himself as Kutsina, and Lucy is concerned he'll be hunted like her pack. He was kind to her, and still is, and she wants to make sure he's safe. At the ripe old age of 12 and a half, Lobster has unfortunately passed to old age. He was quite the character and will be deeply missed by many of the pack. Unfortunately, many are completely fine with the fact that he's gone too. He was fun and very grumpy, and maybe we'll have another husky in the future. I'm sure many people would be happy about that. But we will all mourn the loss of very sassy, grumpy Lobster. Next, and almost last, we have Crimson, one of Chickpea's pups, and the darling old Pearl. I think I may have drawn Pearl a little too small here, but I can't decide. I haven't finished adding the newer dogs to my height charts, so I think they're a little disproportionate. But anyway, let's start with dear old lady Pearl. At 13 and a half, she was the oldest dog in the pack until we got a new elder this year. Pearl has been doing quite well for her age, but I am starting to get a little worried for her. She is very old, and I really don't want to lose her. Unfortunately, that is life though. But for now, she's been enjoying spending time with Atlas and his family, and Bandit with his new puppies. She's not a grumpy old lady, but she can be snappy at those naughty puppies if she needs to be. Crimson has grown into quite the sweetheart. He's loving and incredibly gentle. I think he'd make a fantastic den keeper if he wanted. I kind of hope that's what he decides to do. His mother, Chickpea, hasn't necessarily disowned him, but she's not very proud of his gentleness. She thinks he should be a large, dominating male. He's not convinced though. He would much rather help the elders with the nest than fight off this cougar. Finally, we have our very last dog, a Shiba Inu named Lola. This girl is very old at 16. She's the oldest dog we've had in the pack to date, and everyone is incredibly respectful of her. She obviously hasn't had a very easy life. She was dumped by her two legs at a pretty young age and lived most of her time on the streets. Lola is tough and hardened by her experiences, but she's not mean. And that's all for the dog pack in year 5. So many deaths and so many new dogs, it's like a revolving door. Don't forget to check out the Google Doc in the description. It's still a work in progress, but if you click on it at the right time, you may be able to catch me editing it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you join me for my next one, I'll see you then.